Hello, and welcome to the Gaming Ark podcast. Today, it is a new podcast. It's something different, and it is, of course, the first podcast of all. I am joined alongside by my lovely good friend, Zach. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
Good to hear. Of course, as you can see from the title, and as you can see below on the screen, why was gaming better during the 2010s? This is a question that I've been thinking about for a while. It's actually not something I'm just doing for like a college project, which this podcast is for. It's something I've actually wondered about for sort of the last year or two. Why was it better? Not just, oh, it was just better. And I think today, of course, we're both going to be talking about gaming during different times, different parts of gaming and stuff, which is forever interesting and very exciting. So I guess with that, we can get underway with it. I guess we can do that. Let's just get straight into it. Favorite games. That's the first topic of the evening. Favorite games. What's your opinion? So what's your favorite games?
Well, mainly I don't play too many games, but my favorite game would be Gran Turismo 7 because it's just a fun and relaxing game when at night you want to drive around in a car. You can just take it out on track and just have a fun little drive with it.
I agree. It is actually a very relaxing, quite nice game, and I have played it in the past. Not a lot, but it was always a fun game to drive on and always have a bit of fun with. For me, I'm a bit mixed when it comes down to like favorite games, because for me it depends when, like, in the 2020s, I wouldn't say I've really had a favorite game in the last few years. I think F1 and that sort of sim racing side has always been the main thing I've kind of looked at, and played, as you'll know from the last few years. But outside of that, I haven't really had a favorite game, even to do with F1 or anything or sim racing. I haven't really had a favorite game in the last few years. I've bounced between quite a few games for short periods of time. I will say though that sort of gaming during I'd say definitely gaming for me during the 2010s, from what I remember, was more enjoyable because I played games like Minecraft, Terraria, Fortnite, all of these different games, and they were always incredibly enjoyable to play from, but that's of course also, I think, age partly has come down to it. But I always enjoyed those games. 2000s games has always been a bit harder for me to get into. I've always had an interest in games like Halo and stuff. I've played, I've played, I think, Halo Reach and a few other of the Halo installments, but not a lot of them.
Right.
And so for me, I don't have a huge amount of experience in games during the 2000s. But yeah, I've got a couple of different games as favorites, but it's always really tough to choose.
Yeah.
I
It
think.
is really tough to choose, indeed. In my opinion, the 2000 games I've not really played any 2000 games except for maybe GTA. And that's all really because again, I'm not really into gaming that much, but also GTA is a game that all my friends had, so I played it from time to time. And yeah.
I think GTA is I've got to say, for me, GTA is one of my most played games. I think I've got about 400 hours on it, so not a huge amount, but I only started playing back in 2021, so it's been a few years now. But GTA will always, I think, be one of my favorite games because of how expansive and how it did something so different from the rest of gaming. And how it was very much just a unique idea, something incredibly different that no other sort of developer has been able to reproduce to the same level. Which is, I think, to be honest, that's always, I think, an interesting thing to look at is how, sort of, you always see people talking about GTA 6, when is it coming, but I think people loved GTA 5 until about 2020, and then they started wanting GTA 6. Yeah. I think it's because, after 7 years, you kind of start to expect a new game. But that's because, if you think about it, it was only, 3-4 years between GTA 4 and GTA 5, so it was a much shorter time. So it's always been a bit of a strange one there for me.
Yeah, I mean, people got bored with GTA 5 and during the COVID times because they were playing it so much to where they did not have anything else to do within the game. So they're like, time for a new game or time for a new release. It's like when you listen to music so much, the same type or same song all the time, you want to change your music taste or you want to change the music now. And that's basically what's happening with GTA is that nothing else is being published. So people want a new game now.
Yeah, thing is, I completely agree there. I think Rockstar's kind of disappointed me in the fact that sort of coming into it as a new sort of GTA fan, I enjoyed, I always wanted to play GTA for quite a while before 2021, but it was when I played it, and within about a year, I kind of felt like, I don't know what it is, like a fatigue from playing it, because it was so so sort of drowned out by this thing of this game is now 8 years old and they're nowhere close to making a new game, that it felt like it was dragging on just I guess just playing the game. It felt like I've been playing it for so long when realistically I'd only been playing it for 10 months.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. But again, I feel like even the creators sometimes should take their time because if they release a game with a lot of bugs and a lot of issues, then people will get more mad about how there's bugs and issues within the game. So I would rather have Rockstar take their time and do their best in making this game and have no bugs with them.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think my only worry with GTA 6 is that they've gone really big and expansive. And we even saw with GTA 5, which was incredibly well crafted and put together and developed, and didn't really have a lot of development problems either. I think it was only delayed twice. That was only by, I think, about 3 months. So it wasn't massively delayed. There wasn't a lot of problems with it. But if you look at GTA 6, it's been delayed more and more. And what worries me about the game is that it's getting delayed because they're quite far away from actually having it ready for release. But they keep on putting out dates that they know they can't reach, but they just want to put out a date.
Yeah, I mean, they're just trying to gather the fan base, I guess.
Which is a bit frustrating, especially because this year, it's been delayed by another, delayed by another 6 months this year.
Yeah.
Which is, and I think the worst part to that is that it's not just, it's 6 months, but it's a game that's 4 years from now. It's a game that was meant to be releasing in 3 months' time. It was meant to be releasing in the next few months, so it's a really big disappointment. I think the worst part was the original date of, what was it? Was it February? Or April? I think it was April.
I believe it was April.
Yeah, and then they've delayed it by a few more months. But I think it's because they hyped it up so much for April that now they've delayed it by I think it's another 3-4 months. People are just going, well, why did you even start if you knew you couldn't hit that? But of course, things do go wrong. So behind the scenes, you've got to, take that into account and stuff. Although I will say GTA 5 is brilliant, and I do hope GTA 6 is brilliant as well, because it better be, especially with how much the game's set to cost of, I think, about 100. I think it's £100, which is insane. I get why, but it's insane. The fact that GTA 5 originally started selling on consoles for £40 when it released just shows how crazy it is. But I think I do have one other thing though to say about GTA 6. What I am quite sad about is the fact they're doing the same as they did with GTA 5. They're releasing it on consoles first.
Yeah, that's something I was also pretty mad about in a way, because I believe that they should release it on all platforms together.
Yeah, what annoys me is it's like you've spent 13 years in development of this game. You've spent sort of at least a minimum of 12 years in development, since the last game. But they've only really been developing this game for the last sort of 5 years. But over those 5 years, you've still been unable to get to roll out the game on PC alongside console. And, I think they've said that it's going to be 2027 when we get it on PC. Now, for myself, I personally enjoy playing on PC more than I do on console. But what it means is you basically have to buy the game 2 times over, which for me, I might do because I'm a moron. That's just how it goes in general with us. We're just, we're all mindless beings that just buy games. But I think it's a really frustrating factor for people who don't have a console. They're gonna have to wait another. I think it's supposed to be about 8 to 10 months. To get a PC version of the game, and that means everybody else has already gotten ahead of you by 8 to 10 months before you even started playing. And I think it's a very sad thing to see, especially for a game in development for so long, and a game that's been, I guess, to some degree shelved by Rockstar for a long time. I mean, a lot of people were I've seen rumors of GTA. Originally, there was rumors of GTA 6 starting development in 2016, which was never proven to be true, but it was never proven to not be true. But it is considered that the planning for GTA 6 kind of started around 2017, 2018. So they've had such a long time, and yet they still can't release this thing. They still can't release this on PC.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the issue is that they're trying to make I believe they're trying to make a social media inside the game, like how Instagram is. They're trying to make their own social media inside, and I guess they might have found bugs in that part. But to start in 2018 and 7 years later, almost 8 years later, still not have a game release it is quite concerning.
Yeah, I think we've most likely the gaming industry, the entire gaming community has seen that maybe Rockstar has stumbled a bit, because I think there was a lot of because when I was doing research about GTA 6, and when I've been looking at stuff, it was rumored back in 2022 for them to have gotten stuck on some game problems for about 2-3 months. So it's definitely been a quite a bumpy ride for them to get to this point. And actually, this nicely filters into our next point of conversation, which is evolution of business, which is business within gaming and esports. And it nicely fits into our thing, of course, of why is kind of, we've been saying about Rockstar and how they're kind of being quite disappointing when it comes down to the release of GTA 6. But when I look at it, they've made a huge amount of money and they're bringing up, tons of popularity of the game. do you feel like this kind of 50-50 release over console and PC, do you feel like that's going to damage the game?
Um, I don't believe it's gonna damage it that much, because the game developers, Rockstar, know that it may damage you if they only release it on console. So they must have an idea in their mind saying, yeah, maybe there isn't any damage if we were to release it only on console and then 10 months later release it on PC, because it doesn't make sense to release on PC later and have a damage, right?
It's just a very strange move from Rockstar to have such an in-demand game that hasn't even released yet and just go, nah, we're going to split the community in half for like 10 months. But there is a point actually behind this, because it reminds me of another developer and another publisher, EA.
Oh yeah.
There's one game I've always wanted to cover, and that is Anthem from 2019. Pretty much everybody's heard of Anthem. If you haven't, I'd be really surprised. It is... I played it, right? I played it a few years ago. And it's actually, against everything that so many people said at the time, I actually disagree with it a bit. Because when I played it, it was a bit janky, the playing wasn't great, the movement was god-awful, and the storyline was worse. But I will say, it was actually quite fun. It was, if you took it out of its context of being a storyline in the game and this and that, it was actually just a really fun shooter game with backpacks, essentially. You know, rocket backpacks. So it was a quite a fun game to play. What was your opinion of Anthem?
Well, I haven't played Anthem, but I've definitely heard of it. It's somewhat like Iron Man style flying, which is quite cool because not a lot of games have done that in the past. But it also reminds me of the game Destiny, because it's like a co-op and a shared world game. So there's similar styles with Destiny. But the only issue which I've heard of is the lack of content, which were reported, and there were some technical issues too, which are mixed in with the reviews.
Yeah, I think, you know, you've got to look at it to some degree. Like, the game of Anthem, it released in 2019, in early 2019. And that was a very tough time, of course, for gaming, because there were just the giants of Fortnite, Apex Legends, especially games like Anthem were always set to struggle, because you had Fortnite, Apex Legends, you had all of these other games, and yet they still released it when Fortnite was kind of at its peak. And it came out, I think it would have been a brilliant release during lockdown. I think people would have liked it a lot, would have probably loved Anthem during lockdown, because it was just kind of a bit of a fun PvE shooter with jetpacks. That's literally what it was. And I think people would have enjoyed it a lot more as a 2020 release, but because of the timing of the release, which was, I think, incredibly poor from EA, it just kind of, it really flopped. Another thing that I'll point out as well is you know, everything about flops and good sides to kind of gaming and stuff. You know, you look at it, and this was actually something quite interesting. We talk about Anthem, we've got a Halo background on on the lovely stream, and there's one company that I think has always been really kind of incredibly relevant to sports and to especially gaming and esports, and that's Red Bull. I think we all know what Red Bull is.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you see in real life, I think you'll know from racing in real life, they're in F1, they're in motorsports across basically everything. And I mean, they sponsor people like Neymar Jr. And if you don't watch cricket, but if you do watch cricket, Ben Stokes. Everybody will know Ben Stokes if you watch cricket and you're British. And it actually started with a Halo player, with a pro Halo player. That's when they first got into gaming and esports, was back in 2006, which is older than me.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I look at that and I go, look at what EA has done in gaming and esports since 2006. You look at Red Bull. And this is one of the things that I compare in my mind as those two giant companies. And you go, well, EA has dominated the sports industry for gaming. I mean, we can all agree to that. They own F1, they own Rally, they own basically every sports game you can think of.
Indeed.
Yeah. But you look at Red Bull, and Red Bull are kind of the same in real life. I always say Red Bull are kind of the counterpart to EA, but in real life sports. They're like identical. But what's interesting is how they had two very different approaches. We know during the 2010s, EA started to sponsor some gaming teams and some esports teams. We know Red Bull have, of course. But during the 2010s, Red Bull started two things: Red Bull Kumite and Red Bull LAN. If you don't know what either of those are, Kumite originally started in 2015 and focused on the Street Fighter series, which is is very much an area I don't know about. So don't ask me about it. I have no clue. The Red Bull LAN is actually a massive LAN competition of multiple game series. So you've got like Red Bull League of its own, which is around League of Legends. I'm not sure whether you've played it or not. I haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all around LAN. And that's what EA started to dislike. I really noticed that is that kind of in those mid 2010s to late 2010s, EA started to pull their support from non-sport competitions in esports and gaming. And that's a lot that I actually realized. And it's like Red Bull kind of did the opposite, and they started to take over more of that industry. We see it in sim racing, don't we? From the area that we're from, and FIFA and Madden and all of that. Red Bull have completely, they've started to really dominate that area for teams and sponsoring and things like that. I think we both know a lot of that started from Max Verstappen and Team Redline. I think I think it mostly started from that. We're pretty much actually at the end of this section of the Gaming Ark evolution of business. And I do agree with a lot of people. It is the most boring section possible. Yeah, it's incredibly boring. But that is because it's, of course, business. Nobody enjoys business. We do have a question, though, from somebody, from user KV3KG5MP9D. I actually said that without stumbling. I'm so impressed. What do you think the best game from the 2010s?
I will have to go with GTA. Because that's the only game I've played.
Oh, no. You know what? I'll agree with you on that. I will put, I think, for me, GTA, Minecraft, Terraria, and Fortnite are all the sort of 4 games that I say are all kind of equal at the top for me. But definitely GTA's dominance.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I mean, GTA was completely different from all the other gaming industries at that time.
Mm.
And the game they made was truly advanced.
I do agree. Like, it was the most advanced game, I think, of its time. I will say that I think it was the most in-depth game that I've ever seen, and I actually do say about it in some of my research. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that later today. Once we do make our way through the mountain of other subjects that we have to get through, because for some reason time seems to fly by. So what we'll do is we'll move to once I find my point on my list of things. We'll get onto I guess we'll get onto the 2020s now, and look at that, because gaming during the 2020s, you should know more about this now. This should be more. Yeah. This should start to be more of your area. We've had some great games. We've had some awful games. It's always been my personal opinion that the 2020s have actually probably been the worst decade ever for gaming. And I'm not sure whether I'm right. I'm not sure whether you would agree with me or not.
I kind of respectfully disagree, because back then esports was very little, and now with new games coming in with advanced graphics and more realism, there's more of esports hype and way more popularity within the esports world. And it's not only racing that I'm talking about. I'm talking about every single other game, like Call of Duty and Fortnite esports was really popular in the 2020 during the lockdown and all. So
I think
I kind of disagree with you.
Yeah, I get that. I think gaming boomed during COVID. I think it became so big that nobody really expected it to get to being the size that it did become. The reason why I say I think it's the worst decade for gaming is, for me, comes down to the fact that in the 2020s, I haven't seen a lot of games like push the boundaries. I think to some degree that might just be me harping back to my younger years and childhood. But for me, I look at it and I go, during the 2010s, it's like games were pushing the boundaries every year, graphically and everything else. But in the last, I'd say 3-4 years, especially looking at maybe the last 3 years, especially looking at graphically, games have kind of halted and maybe started to go backwards, graphics-wise. Because some of the graphics I see now in popular games are worse than we saw 10 years ago.
That's true. I mean, that's some of the games. I wouldn't say it's all of the games. I think one of the best games that I would say is popular for the graphics is Red Dead Redemption, with their amazing graphics. Old games with graphics, when I think of old, I think of blurry graphics, right? New games, I think of advanced 8K graphics even. So
big step up.
yeah, it seems like a big step up, but I do agree that some of the games before 2020 was way more advanced in graphics than they are right now.
I think for me, when I've looked through some of it, I've noticed it's come down to mostly 2 or 3 things. And one of them has been budget. Publishers, developers are trying to make games cheaper and cheaper. As I think everyone knows, cost of living and costs and inflation are going up. They're cutting more and more. I think second, there seems to be more of a focus on, from what I've done through what I've looked at through research, there's definitely a bigger focus on making money than creating a quality game. I think they're trying to now make. I see a lot of developers trying to make games that are slightly different from a game that they made 5 years ago, but it's just as addictive, so they can make money from it. And the third thing I've noticed is very much how there seems to be less and less time put into these games than what we used to see. It's like the development teams for, like, we've seen for some games like Call of Duty and stuff has reduced, not by much, but reduced by maybe 100 or 200 staff, and yet they're still pumping out games every year and a half.
Right. Yeah, I kind of think that last point is kind of pressure from the community and the gaming community to where they want games every single year to be published so that they can keep playing new games, because once you beat a game, they want new games. So these people in the community will try to push a game developer to launch a game very early so that they have another game to play. And that's a very big issue now. And that's what we see with EA. And when you were talking about the money part, I feel like that's what's happening with EA, is that they care too much about the money. And if you go to see the prices of their games, of the games they publish, they're really expensive now. And I'm guessing that's because they want to earn money, and they look at money instead of quality.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think yeah. I will say the last thing that I said about is very much focused around that thing of community and how there is a lot more. I do agree. Like, compared to 10 years ago, there's a massive amount more of pressure, and I think anger from communities when you don't give them a game when they want it. Like we said about GTA 6, and we're seeing a lot of backlash towards Rockstar over that, and we're seeing with we've seen it with other games. Halo, we've seen developers and publishers of Halo, like they haven't released the game since 2021, and people are getting quite angry by it and sending hate comments and things like that. So there's a huge amount of pressure riding on games, a lot more pressure now than there was even 10 years ago. I think the money thing as well. I think EA, I think you look at developers and publishers, and you notice just kind of every, I don't know what it is, every maybe 12, maybe 15 to 20 months, I just notice that a game like FC, like 26 or whatever, has gone up £5 from the previous year, but it's the same game, and it just, at the moment, it just kind of, at times, like especially with like GTA 6, then it's going to be £100 for the standard edition on release. Like, why are games reaching this triple digit price tag when they've either been delayed for years on end or they aren't good games?
Yeah. I agree with you, but also inflation so much at this point that these games, they have to increase their prices. But again, when you say that it's basically the exact same game and they're just increasing it £5, all they're doing is just probably changing the graphics and the looks of the people to make them more realistic, and the players, of course. So yeah, I kind of agree with you. It should not be reaching a point to where it's going into the triple digits like GTA most probably is going to be.
Yeah, I think we know a few years ago from Fallout 76, their standard edition came out as £80, and at the time that was considered very expensive back in 2019, was it? The people going, that's extortionate, £80 for a very broken game, or just a game, and just even a good game at £80 was considered ridiculous. And I do agree with your point that inflation, I don't think everybody understands that inflation on a single person, if it goes up for, like 2-3%, it's steep for a person, but for a company or for a business, it can be even worse. So I do agree with that point that it can be a lot worse. But even then, you look at it and, like, just to put in perspective, since 2021, inflation has gone up by 20% in the UK. So games are, you'll just expect to get a lot more expensive and stuff. And that's always difficult. I think it is difficult, if in all honesty.
Yep.
But still, for something to go up by like 20-25 pounds is like the fact that, like, you see games like FIFA used to be like £70 off of release. Now it's like £80, and that's gone up in like 3 years. Like, it's getting quite steep now with how much it costs.
Yep.
And it's just not great.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I want to talk a little bit about EA, and the thing with EA is that, I mean, you've seen the F1 games. They've had so many bugs over the years. And I kind of like the approach they're taking this year by adding a DLC for the 2026 season, which gives them more time to work on a better game, right? It's one additional year to work on a game, and that's a lot of time, so that they can see where the issues are, where the bugs are. Because when EA is being forced to release new games every single year with the F1 games, they're being pressured, and there's bugs in the game, and then now when the people play it, they're complaining about the bugs. So I kind of like that EA has given themselves a bit of cushion and given themselves an extra year to make a way better game.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I agree with you on that. Like, there's not much to disagree.
Yeah.
I think um I think gaming, I think, like you said, the expansion is great, but I feel like if it's any more than sort of probably £30, I won't buy it.
That's very true.
Because, I mean, even £20 would be a stretch for me, because it's not a new game. It's not really anything different. It's the same game, just with an add-on. Like, the last time I paid like £20 for an add-on was when I was like, when I was about 13 years old. Well, less younger than that, about 12 years old, playing Fortnite, buying V-Bucks.
Yeah.
That was the last time I did that, and it was very strange. If you get what I mean, it's one of those odd ones where it just makes me think, oh, well, this is a bit difficult, and it's, I think it's a good idea for EA to go and do it, but I think it was just a bit, I'd say too little, too late. I think, to be honest, I think it was just too little, too late with it. I think this should have happened 2-3 years ago, probably at the end of 23.
Yeah.
They should have done it,
I
not
kind
for
of
new regulations.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that, because cars are completely different. So you're not gonna have those types of cars, those looks of the cars for the game. And I also kind of agree with you on the money part, but then you have to look into EA's perspective. They're losing revenue on an entire game basically, because they're not publishing another game for this coming year. So they need to make up that revenue by giving this DLC and getting some of that money back.
But at the same time, I will say, that's due to their poor production of it.
Fully agree on
Yeah,
that.
it's just entirely down to their poor production. Like, if you weren't so poor at producing something, you wouldn't have this problem. With that though, I think we pretty much covered the gaming during the 2020s. So let's move on to something a little bit different, something we actually probably neither of us really know about, and that's gaming during the 2000s. For me, when I think about gaming during the 2000s, all I think about is that white Xbox and PlayStation 2, and like Wii U and things like that. Like that's all I can think about of the 2000s. Of course, the original Xbox from I think 2002 as well. But I did actually have some games on my list from 2000 to talk about, because there is a game that was, of course, I think we'll all know, called Minecraft. Released, of course, on the 17th of May, 2009. It wasn't fully released until 2011 or 2010, I believe. It was 2011 when it was actually fully released. But it was originally kind of released for download in 2009. And I forever look at that and I go, 2009? You know what? That's not, too bad. Like, the amount of hype that game got before it even fully released was insane. It was just so insane. I mean, I was reading the other day that Minecraft already was getting over 70 million people viewing it on YouTube a month before it fully released. Like, it was already blowing up. I mean, at its peak, it was getting over 500 million people viewing it a month. Just watching on YouTube, 500 million, which is insane as a game. It's one of the first games to actually, I think, surpass 1 trillion views. I mean, think about this. We said about GTA, they've sold about 320 million copies. Minecraft has sold 350 million, and it's the second most sold game ever, only behind Tetris, of course, that ancient game.
Wow.
I mean, Tetris is miles ahead, though. Tetris is at like 550 million. Like, it's I mean, I cannot believe Tetris has that many. Whenever I think about it.
I kind of expected Minecraft to have more sales.
When I read that, I was very surprised. I mean, but to be fair, Tetris is way older, like 1970s kind of old.
That's really true.
Yeah, it's one of the oldest games around, and so when you've got like 30 years over the other game, maybe I think at this rate though, Minecraft will probably have the most sales in like maybe 10-15 years time. I agree. I could really see that, but I mean, they made what was sad about Minecraft was that 2014 to 2016 period. You might remember it. It was long ago, of course, but it was when Mojang decided to just sell themselves to Microsoft for $2.5 billion. And that meant that Microsoft, of course, got all of the rights, all of the control over Minecraft and everything. But there wouldn't be anything new until 2016. So Minecraft kind of halted for 2 years during that time. And then, of course, they decided to do the thing of splitting Minecraft in half. And that wasn't popular. But I will say there is actually an interesting thing about this that I found in my research. In 2016, Minecraft had sold roughly about 53 million copies worldwide.
Wow.
Which is insane, right? But what I did not expect to see and to find out was that by the end of 2019, I want you to have a guess how many copies they sold in total by the end of 2019.
How much was it in 2014 again?
In 2016, it was 53 million.
Uh, 120, 150 million.
That's decently close, the 150 million, but it was 190 million by the end of 29. That's what I can't believe, is that they sold 137 million units in 3 years. 137 million copies of Minecraft in the space of
That's
3 years. And then they've sold another 160 million in 5 years, in nearly 6 years now. Like, it's just so insane to think about that basically they've sold 300 million copies since 2016. And we thought Minecraft was at its peak during like 2012, 2013, but it really wasn't, which makes me quite sad because that means I was too old for that. I think, you mentioned about GTA earlier as well, about gaming during the 2000s, and I've got to say, you called out a brilliant series for the 2000s.
Yep.
I mean, that was one of the best calls I've ever heard. But no, gaming genuinely was the best during the. It was. I don't think it was the best during the 2000s, but I think innovation was the best during the 2000s. Making
Yeah.
new things was, I think, the best. I think, for me, just looking at like my idea and knowledge of gaming since 2000, the 2000s was very much building up more knowledge and experience and getting these big new ideas through the door and to the public. The 2010s was perfecting it. And
I feel like
yeah.
I feel like between 2010 and 2020-ish, developers cared a lot more about the quality of the game, and that's where they focused a lot of their attention on. So that really helped.
I do agree. I think the 2020s has been more capitalism, has been the focus. But I think the gaming during the 2000s is always interesting because I always look at it and I go, you didn't realize how big esports was or gaming was during the 2000s, because a friendly reminder, the PS2 sold over 40 million units. The PS1 sold also over 40 million units. Sorry, just over 30 million units. And the original Xbox, sold about 28 million units. And then you kept on going with new Xboxes. They sold over 100 million with all of their Xboxes. And so it's insane when you think about it like that there's huge amounts of units sold. But I think what was different about what I've seen and what I've played of games from the 2000s was that they were built with love. It was a lot more of that. It was like built by people who were actually interested in that genre or in that game.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. Again, at this point, it's all about the money and how to get themselves rich instead of caring about their customers and caring about the game and really working on the quality of the game and really working on the stuff inside the game. People love that. Like the developers had that in their heart back then. Right now, it's all about money.
Yeah. I think that's the saddest comparison that you have as well.
Yeah.
Is how kind of downhill it's gone. Yeah, I think when I've watched quite a lot of games from the 2000s, and I can never forget games like Star Wars Battlefront. Hopefully you played it. Hopefully.
I am not a Star Wars fan, actually.
You know what? Get out. No, I think, yeah, it's like for me, it was my childhood, like my young childhood in doing gaming and stuff was based on Star Wars Battlefront and those games from 2004 and 2005. And it was really, really big. And I loved those games. And Yeah, there was a lot from that I remember. You know, quite a few games. One of my first games I ever played was Call of Duty when I was like 2. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a bad choice. Um, but like, whenever I look at gaming, the best franchises, the most legendary franchises, have come from the 2000s. Um,
Right.
I think, you know, you got Halo, Call of Duty, you've got Minecraft, you've got what else do you have? I mean, you've got Forza Motorsport, Gran Turismo. You know, you have genuinely, you know, you got Need for Speed in there as well. Like, you've got some of the genuinely best games have come from the 2000s, or the start of the best franchises have come from the 2000s.
Indeed.
And so I think that's something to look at. I think there's just so many games that were so fun that, like, you know how like in the last few years we've seen a lot more of remastered games.
Yeah.
I love playing remastered games. I've got to tell you, except the GTA remaster, I couldn't play that for
Love
the
it.
life of me.
No.
Hell nah, bro. Nah, I'm done. Like, I couldn't. Like, I found it so brilliant the way they've adapted old games to new consoles and PCs now, and updating graphics and stuff. And some of them have done a terrible job, like Rockstar, god awful
Yeah.
job. But some of them have done a really good job with it. And I think that's what really makes me happy about it, is that some of them have kind of almost turned back time to when they weren't just caring about money, and they now focus. And like, I've seen a lot more like these remasters, it seems to be by the original people who made the games than the actual development company. It seems to be with the people who were around at that time. And yeah, it was a very strange one. I will say, during, like, for me, it's a strange subject because of course most of the 2000s was before I was born. So that it's trippy. I know it's ridiculously trippy.
Yep.
But for me, like, I look back at it and I go, some the gaming was just at its peak during that time. Yeah, it's always one of those things, isn't it, where it's like you kind of miss it because of how good it was, and not actually because it was not actually because it was good.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what I think of it as well. Back then, there was a lot more there's a lot more fun with it for some reason. And nowadays, like you look at Fortnite, they've updated so much to where they've lost all their old players and their old fan base because the updates have just killed them,
yeah,
right? If they were to just keep it and use that as a base to help improve the games, that would have been way better.
yeah. I think like on the thing of Fortnite, I think the game just, within a year, I went from playing it tons, it being my main game, to not being my main game, and F1 being my main game. But then it changed so much. Sprinting and things like that kind of came in. You know, the weird running stuff. Like, I couldn't get round that, and it's just never been
Yep.
the same since early 2020. It's never been at that point ever again. But with that, we've got our final section to look at, and that is gaming during the 2010s. And I thought it'd be fitting to do this last because we can kind of cross-reference what we've spoken about in the last two, well, realistically, the last sort of three sections and topics of the podcast. And we can talk about sort of gaming during the peak, shall we say. And I just want to know from you, where do you think that sits?
Um, Gaming during the 2010s. I feel like gaming during the 2010s was probably the best time
Mm.
because, again, the developers really cared about games and it was not that expensive, those games, and people really enjoyed them because the developers decided that instead of trying to make money, make the game the best it can be.
Mm. I think I think for me it was such sort of childhood thing for me as well. Like it was such an incredibly sort of childhood memories, growing up during the 2010s. And, there was so much that it's kind of like it was, before COVID, before, we even knew kind of COVID existed, and it's kind of the missing of those days. But like you said about the 2000s, and I mentioned about like, I think a lot of it's nostalgia that people more look at than now this is controversial, I know, but I do think a big chunk of it, and I will say I'm the same, but I think at least half of it comes down to nostalgia because we've grown up.
I very much agree with that. The nostalgia does hit and you want to go back and play those games, but it doesn't feel the same as it was back in 2010s.
Yeah. I think the main difference is not just we miss gaming during the 2010s. I think it's just because we miss life during the 2010s because it was easier and it was more fun. Like a lot of us were kids, you know.
Yep.
So it was so much easier and life was so much more fun that now those times seem so brilliant. And I think that's really what it is that people miss. And I'll say I miss it too. I'm not one of few, I'm one of many, but I do have to count myself in on that club of missing those times. I think the biggest thing as well was that gaming there was still some unique ideas during the 2010s. We had games like Minecraft that officially released. We had new Star Wars Battlefront series. We had strange games like Hello Neighbor. Like we had the most random of games that reached such heights of popularity. We have Fortnite, Apex Legends, and I feel like looking at like the 2020s to now, because Fortnite got so popular, and because Apex Legends got popular and PUBG and all of those games, developers stopped making games that were different. They started to follow the trend of live service and samey games.
Yeah, I agree. Again, what I remember from 2010s is the childhood, and you want to go back to that, and it was a lot freer back then because most of us were in our childhood back then, and yeah.
Mm. I do. I like. This is the one thing though that I always say about is like, I think it would be great to go back to those times. And I don't think it's just developers. I know we've said a lot about developers and we've thrashed these guys to bits.
Indeed.
But I don't think it's just developers. I think it's the fact that the gaming community's changed a lot as well. The 2000s was very much casual gamers. There wasn't really such thing as professional esports players or stuff. That wasn't really that big.
Yep.
And in the 2010s, then it started to happen, and we saw it. Fortnite World Cup in 2019 and stuff. Like we started to see those massive things happen, and it's become bigger and bigger. But I think now we see a community that doesn't just take games as being fun anymore. It's like a challenge to find a problem with it. It's like they want to find a problem with the game that doesn't exist. One of those things, I will say, In defense of EA, I will say one of those things is like their EAFC series in FIFA. I think players spend so much time on that game looking for problems and being so picky about the smallest of things instead of just going, well, I'm happy that there's a game about this at least, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that's because I think gaming has become so popular and now it's generalized that people now view gaming as kind of anything else. Like when you drive your car, you've got a problem with it, you want it fixed, you know. It's become such a standard way of life for so many people, especially in, for instance, like our generation of the 2000s, and 1990s kids, that like gaming's become so sort of standard and normal that we now see it as like a normal thing to complain about. Whereas, if you
Yep.
were complaining 20 years ago about, oh, this game doesn't have this glitch, you'd just be told to suck it up.
I agree. I agree. But also the thing is, I agree with you that the gaming industry has really changed. And with the FC series of EA, I haven't really played FC, any of the FC games. I've played the FIFA games, but not the
Hmm.
FC games. But yeah, I agree. There's people just sitting there looking for issues and pointing them out and really thrashing the game developers. But in my opinion, that everyone makes mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And it's normal. Sometimes it's normal that there might be some bugs and EA might fix it or a game developer might fix it in the next update. But
Yeah.
I just don't like that there's people just sitting there trying to find the issues, like deep dive and find issues.
Yeah, I agree. I think we see that, like, I think we can both agree. We see that on F1. Like, I think it's become like almost a yearly ritual for people to go out there and try to find problems. Um, and I like, don't get me wrong, F125 is a garbage game, and I will say that with my soul. Like, it is garbage, but um, I wouldn't
I feel
say
like F1,
it's entirely EA's fault.
yeah. I mean, EA made a game, an arcade game. It's supposed to be an arcade game. But when you say F125 as a worst game, I feel like F124 or 22 was worse.
I think no, I agree. I think it's a difficult one there. I think one game that I always like to look at as the worst game was F1 2014. Of course, like, it was an interesting like decade for Codemasters, because you look
Yeah.
at them making the F1 games. You've got 2010, the world's hardest F1 game that you could ever make. I've played that game. My friend has a copy of it from his older brother, and I played like 20 minutes of that game. It is so infuriating. F1 22 would feel peaceful. Um,
Wow.
yeah, it's no, like, I mean, think about Grip, but like a quarter of it. Like, it's nothing. Um,
Oh,
it's a great game. Don't get me wrong, it's brilliant, but it's so hard to drive. It's probably the most realistic F1 game you could actually come across. Um,
I see.
2011 and 2012 were basically the same game. 2013 was garbage. 2014 was even worse. 2015 nobody even remembers. 2016 was the first year that we actually got like the R&D tree, and like, if anybody doesn't know what that is, the upgrading tree to upgrade your car and your team. Um, and basically it kind of went like that. And then in 20, we saw in 2017 they pushed further, and 2018 was weird. I don't know. I love F1 2018, but the graphics were just weird. It's just such a weird year for graphics. 2019 though, oh, that is my stuff. Like,
I feel like 2020 was the most best game. I think so. I think it was either 2019 or 2020, which was the best.
Like, if I was to actually, I will tell you one F1 game that I think was actually very underrated. And this is going off topic away from the 2010s, but I will say F1 23, heavily underrated.
I agree. I very much agree.
I think it's probably top 5. I think best F1
I
games.
agree.
Boring game.
Yep.
It was boring. There was nothing new, nothing good. But you know what? They didn't add anything new, but they fixed a lot of the problems that F1 22 had.
Yeah.
There was no flicking. There was no terrible grip. There was more grip. Yeah, there was rear locking, which was difficult, but that's what we were seeing in real life.
Yeah.
But I think F1 23. Everybody says that was such a rubbish game, and I
No,
just say
it
that.
was one of.
Yeah, I think, I agree. Like, I think people didn't like it because it got too realistic. It wasn't easy, you know. I don't know what it is that, like, people want from games. Like, we saw during the 2010s, people just seem to be happy with anything. Even if they got, like, a mediocre game, they'd think it was great. They'd drink it like it was Red Bull. Like, they'd drink it like it was alcohol. Like, I mean that. Like, they would literally, anything, they'd love it. There were some games, of course, that were garbage. Utter garbage.
There's always games that are garbage. I agree.
Yeah, there is always games, but like for me, like I think the 2010s was like a lot of games. Like, one game series that I always remember about was like Mass Effect. Like, doesn't matter how bad that game got, and I think it was the most boring game series I've ever come across. But
No wonder I didn't hear about it.
But it was still, people loved it. There was still a massive community. And then when they started remastering games, it went all bad this decade for them. So, you know, I think there's a lot to look at. I think it's also genre. I don't know whether this is just me, but is it? But this is a strange thing to say, but I think gaming during the 2020s has shrunk a lot in the genre-wise. I think the 2010s really expanded upon the different genres of, you've got realistic real life kind of GTA, Thief Simulator, and games like that, and then you had the space games, Halo, Mass Effect, Star Wars. Then you had all of these other games, strategy, this, that, this. But then all of a sudden in the 2020s, we've barely seen any of these games. We've had a garbage Star Wars game. Every Star Wars game this decade has been garbage. Halo's just disappeared. Mass Effect is garbage. No GTA, nothing fun. No Red Dead Redemption 3. Like, I mean, remember when people were calling that Red Dead Redemption 3 was going to release in 2023? Everybody was like, it's coming out, and then it never did. And you will be happy, though. I heard some news about Red Dead Redemption 3. It's set to be released probably around 2030.
2030?
Yeah. We've got another 5 years.
Oh my god.
Like, it just makes me so
and
depressed.
gentlemen.
I've never played it, and I probably never will. But you know what? Even I've got some respect for good games. But
I'll most probably play it.
yeah,
That game is super tempting.
everybody's still going to play it. To be honest, they'll wait.
Yeah.
But I think on the thing game during the 2010s, I think there was a lot more variety than we've got now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, and it does make me a bit sad, if I'm being honest. It does make me a little bit sad that that variety's kind of disappeared from gaming in the last sort of few years. But we are now on to our final section. And that is, of course, was gaming at its peak during the 2010s? This is where we now decide whether gaming was or wasn't at its peak during the 2010s. What do you think after all this chatter for the last hour?
Um, Gaming was at its peak at the ends of the 2010s. Well, I would say gaming was at its peak during like the 2020 era time because everyone was playing during the COVID times. There was a lot of nice games being released, some very garbage indeed.
Fall Guys.
But I feel like it was at its peak because of how many people were playing it. And yeah, that's mainly all. But also the graphics of some of the games was just incredible.
I agree with you there. Like, for me, I disagree slightly on the thing that 2020 was best. I feel like around 2015, 2014 to 2016 was just unholy for levels of new releases. Was just unholy during those 3 years. Like every single game that released was just slapped. Every single game was just brilliant.
Yeah.
I think gaming started to die off a bit in 2019. I think that's when we noticed. I think that's when more people noticed that gaming was starting to die off a bit. Was towards the back end of 2010s. I can't lie. For me, the 2010s. I think it's confirmed. Gaming was at its peak during the 2010s. I think we'll never see growth or recognition of gaming like that, sort of the growth of recognition in the world for gaming like that again.
I do agree with you actually on the 2010s. I feel like 2010s there was so much of a variety of games and there was a constant flow of legendary games coming out. So I do agree that maybe in 2020 the games are being a bit repetitive and it's more boring. So I feel like in the 2010s that era was the best, or the I would call it the golden peak
Yeah,
of the gaming industry.
yeah, I agree. Like one game I always like to come back to on great game during the 2020s. If you just looked at the 2020s, you go, "This is a brilliant game." But if you looked at the 2010s or the 2000s, you go, "This is garbage," and that is
Yeah.
Elden Ring. Like Elden Ring, I don't know your position on this, but for me, Elden Ring, brilliant game. To me, I think Elden Ring is probably the best game of the 2020s. But the shoddy fall we've had from the 2010s to the 2020s within like 4 or 5 years is ridiculous. You know, like in 2022, this game released. Elden Ring released in 2022, won so many awards, it was ridiculous. Has 30 million copies sold. But you look at that and you go, well, it's been out for 3 years. It's got 30 million copies, so it's selling at about 10 million copies a year. Okay. You look at like gaming during like the 2010s and you'd have like 3 games a year doing those numbers.
Yep.
I think remember Fortnite that within about 4 months they reached 50 million copies sold. Like 50 million downloads. Like in like 4 months. Like it was insane. And I get that there's a difference between a free game and not a free game. But, even looking at like Minecraft, within 5 years it sold 56 million copies and within the next 3 years it reached 190 million. Like we don't, even
Yeah.
games like Call of Duty at its worst was still selling like 3 million copies in like its first like week. It's
Yep.
still selling ridiculous numbers. And, all of these games have been selling millions. But then you look at the 2020s and it's like 4, 5, I think it's like 3 games inside of the top 10 most purchased games, or like 2. Like it's been really awful so far this decade. And it makes me really sad, to be honest. I think for me, I do fear that over the next like 10 years, we're going to see gaming drop off. and we're going to get a reduction down to very minimalistic games, and then kind of have maybe a repeating cycle of we have like a 2010s in like the 2040s. Like,
I agree.
yeah,
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like that's what's bound to happen, really.
yeah. I think we'll probably see another 2010s towards the end of the 2030s. I think we've got a long wait before we see it. But I think the feeling of the 2010s being the best will never go, because you know what? It was good. It's not just the nostalgia. It's not just public opinion. It's not just developers. Just everything was better. Like, if we're being completely honest, everything just was better. And I will never get round the thing of gaming during the 2010s being the peak of gaming. And I think very much probably for the rest of my life it will be.
I agree with that.
Yeah. But based off of that, that is pretty much, that's all of our discussions, sadly, for the day. We've made it through. We've survived, just about.
Indeed.
But yeah, thank you to everyone who has been watching or has watched all today. I hope everybody has enjoyed it and maybe learned something from it. Also, big thank you to you, of course, Zach, for joining me for this world's most boring podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course, helping with the college project, massive help. So you know what? I'll give your team 50+ points and assists now. I'll just hand you guys the championship. You guys will win with ease.
Yeah, what?
Yeah. And I'll give you 1 point. Just there you go. But honestly, no, it's been absolutely great today. It's really been it's actually been quite fun, and a nice chill podcast. But
yeah,
have you got any last words, not to your life, but to this podcast?
No,
You're so sick of
I've
me. You've
enjoyed
got
it.
no words left.
Well, I mean, I've enjoyed it. That's one thing.
Yeah, I mean that's
Yeah.
always great to hear. To be honest, is that you've enjoyed it. But with that, thank you to you. Thank you to everyone for watching. And maybe at some point in the future we'll be back with another podcast. But make sure to subscribe and leave a like. Also, click on the notification bell to know about all of the content I'll be doing. I've got lots coming for 2026, so make sure to be around for that. And with that, thank you so much, and have a good week, and I will see you very soon. Goodbye.
Thank you.